The overall schedule for both categories of the application review can be found here. As you can see, applications are initially reviewed for approximately 4 weeks by the program administrator. Next, approved vendors will be given approximately 2 weeks to cure any deficiencies that were identified. After that, the program administrator will begin the scoring process, which lasts approximately 3 weeks. Approved vendors will have a chance to review their initial scores and dispute and resolve any discrepancies. And lastly, scores will be finalized and posted. Let's get into the traditional community solar scoring. Since there's a limited amount of available capacity each program year, a scoring mechanism has been developed for if the annual block of capacity is exceeded by applications submitted on the first day of the program year. When this occurs, Part 1 applications submitted on the first day will be ranked by score, and projects that score a minimum of 5 points will receive a spot on the waitlist. Once your project application is added to the waitlist, it is eligible for a REC contract once more capacity becomes available. There are a number of program resources available on TCS scoring, including the program guidebook, an example TCS Part 1 application, and a program announcement regarding the TCS Part 2 application. Let's get into the first scoring criteria for the TCS Part 1 application, which is built environment. As you can see, there are several different criteria available to earn points, including projects on contaminated land or rooftops, project on brownfields, and projects that incorporate agrivoltaics or pollinator-friendly habitats. The appendices of the program guidebook and the example TCS Part 1 application offer several resources such as definitions and guidelines for each criteria. The second scoring criteria is siting. This includes projects that are located in an environmental justice community or R3 area, projects that are sited on land owned by a nonprofit or public entity, and projects in counties that do not have a community solar project. Next is the equity eligible contractor scoring criteria. This includes projects that are developed either fully or partially by EEC certified approved vendors, designees, or subcontractors. As you can see here, you can gain more points according to the level of EEC contractual commitments. Projects that are fully developed by an EEC can gain 4 points, while projects that have 75% or more of the project's REC contract value developed by an EEC can gain 3 points. Projects that have between 50 to 75% of the project's REC contract value developed by an EEC can gain 2 points, and projects that have between 25% and 50% of the project's REC contract value developed by an EEC can gain 1 point. And lastly is the interconnection status criteria, which includes projects that have a valid interconnection agreement and projects that can demonstrate a top 2 queue position. The program administrator will also award additional points between all TCS applications based on the recency of the interconnection agreement. Next, let's get into demonstrating scoring commitments at the Part 2 application. At this application stage, the program administrator will confirm that all awarded points from the Part 1 application were met. For agrivoltaics, this means submitting a completed agrivoltaics plan. Changes to an agrivoltaics plan, such as change in crop utilization or footprint size, above the required 50% outlined in the Appendix C of the program guidebook are permitted. If points for grazing were awarded, active grazing needs to be present at the time of Part 2 application, and demonstration of such must be made through the Part 2 application. For pollinator-friendly habitat, this means submitting a copy of the Illinois Department of Resources scorecard with a passing score of 85 points and noting any changes to the plan. For EECs, we will need to see the agreements that outline the work was completed, and substitution of an EEC may occur due to unforeseen circumstances, but this change does need to be made in writing to the program administrator. Next, let's move on to CDCS scoring. Upon closing of the 90-day application window, Part 1 applications will be reviewed and scored, with projects selected from the application pool in order of highest to lowest until the block capacity is fully allocated. All CDCS applications will be scored regardless of available capacity. A minimum of 6 points must be achieved to be eligible for a REC contract in the CDCS category, and projects must score a minimum of 10 points to receive a spot on the wait list. There are a number of program resources available on CDCS scoring, including the program guidebook and a program announcement regarding the CDCS Part 2 application. For CDCS scoring, there is primary selection criteria for a maximum of 20 points. The first criteria is for community ownership or community wealth building through having a minimum of 50% of the ownership of the project held by community residents or nonprofit organizations, which directly serve the community where the project is located. This would include having members of the community being able to participate in decisions regarding the governance, operation, maintenance, and upgrades of and to the project, and members of that community benefiting from the project through subscriptions to the project. The next primary selection criteria is additional direct and indirect benefits beyond project participation as a subscriber, including but not limited to economic, environmental, social, cultural, and physical benefits. The application must quantify the value of these benefits, and they must represent at least 20% of the REC contract value. Direct benefits can include, but are not limited to, financial benefits for the owners and subscribers, such as bill savings, revenues from project ownership, tax credits, and the financial value of the project, as well as job creation, direct income, and increased economic activity in the defined geographic area. Indirect benefits can include, but are not limited to, demonstration of environmental, educational, and cultural benefits. The next primary selection criteria is meaningful involvement in project organization and development by community members, nonprofit organizations, or public entities located in or serving the community. Meaningful involvement in project organization can mean, but is not limited to, a process that consists of public input, participation, and engagement in the program design process, including workshops, webinars, and public comment periods, all of which afford stakeholders the opportunity to influence decisions that impact their community. The next primary selection criteria is engagement in project operations and management by nonprofit organizations, public entities, or community members. Engagement can mean continuous community participation and consultation as projects are built, operated, and maintained in a way that affords opportunities for the community to weigh in on and make decisions regarding the project. And the last primary selection criteria is whether the project is developed in response to a site-specific RFP developed by community members or a nonprofit organization or public entity located in or serving the community. Next is the secondary selection criteria, which has a maximum of 16 points available. Under this criteria, projects that are developed in collaboration with or to provide complementary opportunities for the Clean Jobs Workforce Network Program, the Illinois Climate Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, the Returning Residents Clean Jobs Training Program, the Clean Energy Contractor Incubator Program, or the Clean Energy Primes Contractor Accelerator Program. Additionally, projects that increase the diversity of locations of community solar projects in Illinois, including by locating in urban areas and population centers, are also one of the criteria. Additionally, projects that are located in equity investment eligible communities and projects that are not greenfield projects may also score points. And lastly, projects that serve only local subscribers, projects that have a nameplate capacity that does not exceed 500 kilowatts, projects that are developed by an EEC, and projects that meaningfully advance the goals of providing more direct and tangible connection and benefits to the communities, or create a variety of CS projects may earn additional points. Let's get into the scoring requirements at the Part 2 application. Any changes to commitments made in the Part 1 application submission, which resulted in a more favorable scoring and thus higher likelihood of contract award, will be considered an event of default under the REC delivery contract, resulting in the full forfeiture of collateral, with the system unable to be Part 2 verified. For the first primary scoring criteria, the percentage ownership claimed will need to be detailed, and proof of this must be submitted. For direct and indirect benefits, the approved vendor will need to show that the commitments were maintained and include supporting documentation such as a bank record or written communication from a qualified organization containing the name of the organization, the amount, and the date of the contribution for donations. This could also be a form of receipt or acknowledgement or proof of the charitable contribution. For subscriber bill savings, you may calculate the annual projected bill savings over the lifetime of the project. For economic activity, please provide the contracts and receipts of the work that has already occurred and planned work that will occur over the life of the contract. For taxes, please provide a copy of the annual tax bill. And for demonstration of any other benefits, please include any relevant documentation. For the following scoring criteria, the approved vendor will need to show that the commitments were maintained and include any supporting documentation. The program administrator may request more information regarding these commitments throughout the lifetime of the project in the annual report. And any permitted changes must be detailed in writing to the program administrator. Like the primary selection criteria, any changes to commitments made in the Part 1 application submission, which resulted in more favorable scoring, will be considered an event of default under the REC delivery contract. For the first scoring criteria, the approved vendor will need to share the programs or complementary opportunities that were involved in developing the project. And projects that serve only local subscribers will be verified during the Part 2 subscriber verification process. For the next criteria, the approved vendors will have to demonstrate how these commitments were maintained and provide evidence of doing so.